I think the first thing that I did in July was just instant action. There's some sort of action plan. And honestly, I did it all in 1 week because I was just like, this is exactly what I want to do. Like wholesale is where I want to be at. That's where I see the business shifting towards. So I'd say immediate action is probably the first thing that contributed to my company's wholesale success. Your success compounds over time.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Steve here with Rake and Profit. Today, I'm joined with my new friend, Rahul, who, believe it or not, has only been selling for a little over 12 months. He started his Amazon journey in December of 2022, and he's already done $2.3 million on Amazon, which is wild, which is like a hair over a year. So it's crazy, man. Like I'm looking at some of these notes and I'm like, you've been doing this for about a year. You're at $2.3 million. He actually started by selling his sister's books on eBay. And then he learned about our good friend Corey, who I actually had on my channel just the other day. Corey does wholesale as well. And Rahul found his wholesale challenge, went through it. And now a year later, I mean, this guy's at 2.3 million. Of course, it's top line revenue, right? And we could dive a little bit deeper into profits and different things. But man, it is a blessing to have you on the channel. And I would love to just pick your brain. So tell me, man, what's going on? How in the world did you do 2.3 million in sales in a year? Is this all wholesale?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Steve. Super happy to be here and share my story. But yeah, as you said, I started kind of hustling with eBay. Kind of grew that business into a few different models, kind of got into sports cards with that craze, touched into NFTs and OpenSea and did a little bit of that stuff, but ultimately found Amazon from YouTube. So was watching a few of those videos, those guys with those Lambos, and just was super enticed by that and was just thinking that was kind of the next step in my reselling career. So as you mentioned, started in December of 22. I started out selling, like doing RA, which is retail arbitrage, kind of going to, Nike outlets. I don't mind kind of sharing that spot, but going to the Nike outlet and kind of just doing stuff that I found on Twitter. I started with that, then got into OA as I had to move back for school. So in January, had to go back and finish my last semester in college. So obviously you can't really do RA all day when you're not on winter break. So got into OA. And that's what really accelerated my growth. But I really did start to feel kind of the burdens of OA, that being, return products and not being able to kind of replenish your catalog, right? Your SKUs and your ASINs are kind of changing 24/7, depending on what's available to you. You can't really replenish those products as much. And then I got introduced to wholesale basically through Amazon and basically through Twitter. So, been following along the big accounts and saw Corey, providing the free content that he does. And that's kind of what piqued my interest in wholesale. So started reaching out to brands, distributors, things of that nature earlier in 23. And then Corey announced his wholesale challenge, which I was a part of. And kind of from that point on in July of 23, it's kind of been a healthy mix of OA and wholesale. I'll still say that I'm about, I'd say like 70% OA, 30% wholesale. Still trying to rebalance that to be a little bit stronger on the wholesale side, just for some more stability. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And yeah, I've grown it up to a big number and just kind of excited for 2024.
Well, that's awesome, man. So how old are you, by the way? You look super young.
Yeah, so I'm 23.
Oh, I love it, man. And what are you going to school for?
So I graduated in May. I went to school for finance. So yeah.
Finance. Nice. And I'm assuming you did you learn a lot from like Flip for Miles and Warner Field of Profits, because they're killing the game with OA?
Yeah. It was all those guys. I never ended up taking a course just because I had a strong background in reselling. So I knew how kind of like unit economics and how to kind of research products already. But I did definitely like watching those guys' free videos, learning SellerAmp and Keepa, just the basics. But after I kind of did it for like a month, I really started to understand it a lot more, because there is like a difference between consuming that content, which is great. You should definitely do it. And then actually kind of going out and doing it, because you're just going to learn your own things and kind of solve a lot of the questions that you have in your own mind that are questions you can't really Google, or if you don't have instant access to them, like if you didn't take their class or course or whatever, you can't really message them. Well, I'm sure they're available too, but most likely you won't be able to kind of get those answers to those questions. You just kind of have to figure out on yourself.
So let me ask you a question, Rahul. When did you realize in your business, because you're doing online arbitrage, and a little bit about me, I'm 100% online arbitrage. And I'm actually going to be going through Corey's wholesale challenge starting on January 22nd. So I feel like I'm living your life, man, a year before, because I did about 700,000 sales for 2023 with all OA. And I'm excited to add wholesale to the mix, but I actually don't want to add, like, I don't want to change my whole business because I'm making a ton of money with OA. So it's, it sounds like you're doing the same thing that I want to do. Like I want to add maybe 10, 20, 30%. So how has that like helped your business now that you've added wholesale to the mix? You mentioned stability. Were there any other benefits of adding wholesale for the folks transitioning or wanting to add it into the mix?
Yeah, I mean, how I would view it as is almost like a stock portfolio, right? You kind of have your OA and RA, which can be very volatile and you're very exposed to the upswings, right? You're going to have higher ROI, higher margin, selling product. And then how I view it is my wholesale is kind of my bread and butter. I know how much I'm going to make. I know my return rate. I know kind of exactly what's going to like go on with those products and those brands. Obviously, there's still, you're still subject to IP, you're still subject to price volatility, but not as much. So, I mean, I guess in your use case is very similar to mine, as you said. So I would view it as kind of bolstering your cash flow as well as kind of understanding your numbers at a very like granular number, right? You're going to understand exactly 30% of your income this month is going to come from XYZ products and XYZ brands. And then your other 70%, it could be very, very good, not so good. Hopefully we're kind of hanging out in the very good section. But that's kind of how I would view it. It's kind of like your stable, solidified part of your portfolio, and then you still want some exposure. At least I do, and it seems like you do as well to kind of those upswings.
Yeah, no, definitely that resonates with me. So, have you been doing all of this OA and wholesale up until today? We'll talk about it, but have you been doing all this from a prep center?
Yeah, good question, Steve. So actually, I was doing everything on my own in terms of prep. So I would literally drive back every single weekend, right after class on Thursday, grind out prep on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then drive back to school Monday morning. Because luckily, as a senior, I didn't have any 8 a.m. So my first class was at 10 on Monday, and I only lived 2 hours away from where I went to school. So I was able to really grind it out for like about 3 or 4 months. And then in April, it was like very, very overwhelming in terms of like I was super stressed, right? That's like a very stressful situation. Literally producing like close to 2,000 units every single weekend is like insanity. Like, I mean, not by myself. I'll definitely shout out my parents, my girlfriend, even my sister at times when she was home, she would help out. So all super, contributing members to my success. Wouldn't be there without them. But in April, I was like, okay, if I'm going to take this serious, I'm about to graduate. I kind of have to figure out what I want to do. I want to take this seriously. I was really contemplating warehouse versus prep center. And at that time, the prep center route made a lot more sense just because I was 100% OA. And as most, or not most people might not know, but there are definitely some states, I think it's like 6 states that are sales tax exempt, New Jersey, Delaware, New Hampshire, Montana, and Oregon. I think there's like one more or something. But I was looking for prep centers in that area because as long as your average dollar value of your purchase is above $15, at least from my state that I live in, it's actually going to be financially beneficial for me to go with the prep center. So if I buy something for $15, my sales tax is 7.5% in Ohio. So I'm paying $1.12 in sales tax. And my prep center that I got quoted for was charging me $1.10 in standard prep. So anything I bought, and that just like clicked for me. I was like, anything I buy $15 or more, I'm going to make more money plus save more time. I'm going to save 30, 40 hours on the weekend. I'm going to save my back. I get my life back a little bit. So that just really, really made sense to me. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing prep center for the rest of 23. And then I brought some of the operations back for December just for FBM. So I could kind of take advantage of that. Those kind of quick flips and easy flips during the holidays.
And I think you said before this call, right? You're like, "Hey, it might be a few minutes late. I'm signing a contract." Right? Did you land a contract with a warehouse today?
Yeah, so it's super exciting for our company. Just signed a warehouse lease, basically I think 12 minutes from my apartment. So super excited about that. I actually move in on the 1st of March, so have kind of a month and a half to figure out which accounts for wholesale I want to bring over to my warehouse and which ones I want to keep for the 3PL because there are geographical, not restrictions, but benefits for using a 3PL still, such as, freight costs from shipping something from New York all the way to Ohio versus New York to New Jersey. It's going to be a lot cheaper to freight that stuff. So definitely not letting go of my prep center. How I kind of want to view it is I'm taking a little bit off their plate and kind of adding a few departments of our own. So as you grow, you're going to get basically growing pains such as removal orders for restricted product. You're going to get return product. And my prep center, they do have plans to start accommodating for that, but obviously that's going to be an expense and there will be a little bit more leakage than I would like to be.
Right.
So that's kind of the biggest reason for me opening up the warehouse is honestly, I want to deal with those returns and grow my eBay store, or if it's restricted product, grow my Walmart store with those products and kind of test some things out. So super excited for that.
Hey man, more control, more control over the operation, do things the way you want, when you want, and be able to oversee things. Now, when you transition from OA to wholesale, and obviously you're still doing about 70% wholesale, were there any special certificates or licenses that you had to get in order to start for folks who maybe want to add this to the mix?
Yeah, so I'd say there's probably two things that you need to have kind of on hand for wholesale. The first one would be not so much as a certificate, but you just want to have a business bank account. I'd say the benefits for that are endless. First of all, you kind of have a separate personal and bank statements. That's going to be beneficial for your taxes, keeping things very clean, as well as most of the time they will ask for your bank information or bank account. So it's kind of unprofessional if you're like, hey, here's my personal savings account. Please don't call my rep because they're just going to be like, oh yeah, this guy has a personal or this girl has a personal, savings account, whatever it is. So I'd definitely say have that in hand. I'd say for any business, but for wholesale specifically. And then I also did have a resale certificate already on hand for my RA purchases that I was doing earlier in December and January of 2022 and 2023. So that resale certificate will basically allow you to be exempt for sales tax, sales and use tax. And that's obviously beneficial because you're going to save anywhere from 6% to 8% wherever you're living, wherever your prep center is. That's going to save you a ton of money in sales tax, as well as permit you. It's basically kind of like a green check mark for them as well. They're like, okay, this guy's serious or this girl is serious. They have a reseller certificate. And I would say be cautious of all those websites that are like, get your resales permit in like 5 minutes. Yeah, it's super easy, but you're going to get charged 5, 6, all the way up to $1,000. It's as simple as calling your city, calling your state, just find a number, call them, understand what you have to do and just fill out the forms. And for me, it was $25, no renewal fee, anything like that, and you're all good to go. So definitely kind of do your own research on that for your own state.
Awesome. Awesome. Now take us back to December of 2022. You went through Corey's wholesale challenge, and I'll share some information for folks. This video should be coming out in a couple days. So that challenge starts January 22nd. So there's still a week or two until that starts, but take us back to, that challenge. You went through the challenge, you learned a bunch of stuff, and, we could talk more about that later, but you went through it. Then what? Like, how do you go from, because that's what I'm thinking for myself. I'm a thrifting guy. Like I'm an OA guy. That's what I've been doing for 10 years. And now wholesale is like a completely new game for me. And I'm wondering, like, when the rubber met the road, or the road met the, what is it? I don't know. Whatever. You're done with the challenge. You're done with the challenge. How do you land that first wholesale deal? Like, I'm not telling you to give away all your sauce, but like, what was that first deal like? Like, were you calling like brands or distributor lists? Like, how did that work? I'm so curious because I feel like once you get one, you probably build like that confidence.
Yep. That's 100% right, Steve. I mean, that was a very exciting period for our company back in July because it was very pivotal, right? Like I had 2 employees, virtual employees at the time that I wanted to share with that, hey, like this is the direction that we're moving towards and shifting towards. And I was like, hey, I'm taking this course, let you guys know, what I learned and how we can kind of capitalize off of that. So I think the first thing that I did in July was just instant action, right? I think Corey had like a 21-day or 7-day, I jogging my memory right now, but it was some sort of action plan. And honestly, I did it all in 1 week because I was just like, this is exactly what I want to do. Like wholesale is where I want to be at. And like, that's where I see the business shifting towards. So I'd say immediate action is probably the first thing that contributed to my company's wholesale success. And then, I mean, in terms of the process of finding your first distributor, first brand to work with, that's just going to be a lot of legwork. I think people that do thrifting or OA kind of have that mentality of, okay, I got to hustle. I got to, find XYZ brand and XYZ niche, it's going to be, a lot of legwork. But as you said, it does, your success compounds over time. And that's exactly what happened with us. So I had actually tried to do some distributor outreach before Corey's wholesale challenge in July, like back in March and April, kind of around the time I got a prep center, because I was like, okay, I have a little bit more time. On the weekends, I can do a little bit more research, contact brands. So I started honestly with contacting brands that were OA friendly, so stuff that I was already purchasing. And while that might be a good strategy for some, it really didn't work out for me. I would say that maybe steer away from that, because you're going to have some exposure to OA risk in terms of, lots of sellers purchasing that similar brand or similar product on discount, which is probably going to be honestly cheaper than your wholesale price. So I'd probably steer away from that. The best way that we find distributors and brands right now is honestly, there's just two ways that we do it. The first way is we just Google, XYZ distributor, New Jersey. So our prep center is in New Jersey. So we look up, grocery distributor, New Jersey, grocery supplier, like New Jersey, grocery supplier, New York, grocery supplier, Philadelphia. Anywhere in like a 200-mile radius of our prep center is going to be able to ship us product, or it's going to make sense economically. So that's one way we do it. And the second way, and this is the way that I like it the most, and I think Corey harped on this very hard during the challenge as well, was finding brands, and then if it doesn't work out with that brand, asking that brand for a distributor. We work with 5 distributors right now, and all 5 came from that second way. So while the first way you might open a lot of doors, it might not just end up in like working in the end just for pricing, lead times, etc. But what we like to do is we like to use a tool called Smart Scout, and where we can get a very niched down list of brands in a specific category that we're looking, to supply product in. And once we get that list of brands, we kind of go through each brand and apply, certain filters that honestly we learned from Corey, just kind of copy and pasted and adjusted a little bit to our needs in our company. But after we have that list of brands, it's as simple as finding the right contact, whether it's a salesperson, whether it's just a phone call to their corporate number, and they can kind of transfer you. So either call or email them, and that person's going to be able to like be very honest with you. They're going to be like, okay, you're too small for us, or we don't do any brand direct deals, or etc. And honestly, while that might be like kind of discouraging, the best thing you can do in that case is be like, hey, awesome, like, is there a distributor that you guys work with in the Northeast or in the East Coast? And that's going to open the doors for you tremendously, because if you're working with a distributor, you're going to have access to anywhere from 100 to 1,000 companies plus. So just by contacting one brand, getting that one distributor lead, and it could be a warm lead too. They could introduce you into that distributor, like, hey, by the way, Rahul from XYZ LLC is calling. That's the best case scenario. And then when you call the distributor, you already got that warm lead, like, Susie May from XYZ called in, and we're just following up on that. And now you have access to, 100 plus brands, including the one brand that you were already looking for. So that's probably the best 2 ways to do it. There are different ways that Corey, goes into, but it's all about finding what works for you. And the nice thing about wholesale, I know I'm kind of going on this one question, but the best way, or the nice thing about wholesale is once you kind of have your 4, 5, 10, 20, depending on your size and your spend, once you have your core suppliers, you really don't have to do the outreach again, right? Until you grow in
Thank
capital.
God.
Right. So that's kind of like the mindset you have to have, is like, I just have to do the hard work right now. But once I get my distributors, once I get my product, I don't have to kind of go through this all again, right? So that's kind of the nice thing. We are personally reaching out to more brands now, just because we have more opportunity or potential for opportunity spend. But yeah.
So that's really good. I'm glad you really harped on that, because that answered a lot of questions that I had. So you're essentially going out fishing, right? And you might be pulling in fish, but maybe it doesn't meet the limit, right? For the tournament that you're in, you're trying to get a 3-pound, 4-pounder. And it's like, you're somehow like one fish leads to another, one opportunity. It's just a big spider web of networking, it sounds like. So that's cool. That's really cool. So as a distributor, just for the, the newbies like me, who's not used to dealing with this. So a distributor essentially works with a bunch of different brands. So even if you just have one distributor, you might have access to thousands of different products and new products coming into the catalog all the time. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, sometimes distributors will also be buying products from other distributors or suppliers, where that's where it can get a little bit gray. So you want to make sure you're working with, a fully authentic distributor that has a clear line and clear
Mm,
supply
not a
chain,
middleman.
not a middleman. Because I mean, sometimes those middlemans could be middlemans for stolen goods, liquidated returns, things like that. You want to be a little bit cautious of. I'd say look at Google reviews, look at like the BBB reviews, things like that. You can take a look at. But also, it's as easy as calling your sales rep or the front desk person and being like, "Hey, can I talk to someone about this concern that I have or this, where you guys get your products?" And they're not going to exactly say like, "Hey, we get it from this person," but you can kind of tell by the way that they talk and if they're like confident in their answers, that if they're like legit or not. But yeah, I kind of forget the main question, but
Oh, it's all good, man. We're running all over the place, man. I've got like 15 questions in front of me, and I keep asking you questions
cool.
that aren't on my list because I'm so curious. So let's say, well, let's start with this. And I just want to ask you like an honest question. Someone who comes from the thrifting world, I know you did a little bit of that. Someone who comes from the OA world, and I do mostly eBay to Amazon flips. So I'm like so spoiled with like 50, 60, 80% ROIs. And obviously when I was thrifting, I was spoiled with 300, 500% ROI. So it's obviously going down and I'm using my capital, like I'm leveraging my money and I'm leveraging these systems to make more money. But obviously you're doing way more top line revenue for like a smaller amount. Is it really worth it like to do wholesale coming from OA? Because the margins are going to be less than OA, I would assume, right? Is it really worth it? And are you like, for you, are you doing this because you want to get it to a point where you don't have to keep scaling your time and like you really want to like leverage your capital and really systematize this? But at the end of the day, is it worth it coming from like the OA world?
Yeah, great question, Steve. So I would say it's worth it depending on your goals, right? If you're doing maybe like part time or you just want to kind of go for those 300, 400% flips, then I would say no. You're not going to find those types of products typically, legit products at least, in wholesale. But if you are trying to maybe buy back some of your time, if you are trying to leverage a little bit more of your capital, and if you're trying to stabilize your core catalog a little bit more, then 100% it's worth it, because just how I mentioned a few minutes back, once you find your core distributors, you're kind of set for maybe 3, 4, 6 months, maybe a year plus. It's the same way with those products. So with OA or thrift, I mean, especially thrifting, you find a vintage tee, the chances of you finding that same vintage tee is very, very low, right? You're probably not, maybe you find another one and the good one right next to it or whatever. And in no way, there might be a month long sale. So you buy the product, sell it, replenish it, and then that's kind of it. But for wholesale, you find a product, it's going to be a winner for, I don't know, I'd say on average at least 2 to 3 months. I mean, obviously there is competition, there is an abundance of sellers, but it kind of stabilizes your catalog for a prolonged period of time, buying back your time. So if you do have another business venture or you do have another job or whatever it is, you can kind of do both at the same time. And that's kind of been the biggest benefit for me with wholesale. It's been aligning my goals a little bit better and buying back a little bit more of my time.
Yeah. And Corey was saying when I interviewed him last week, if you guys haven't watched that, go check out Corey's interview. But he was saying you want to find the distributors where they say no in the beginning. You have to follow up. Maybe they don't let everybody sell because then you're going to have less competition. You're going to have less people jumping on the listing. Maybe you want to be one of the 7 authorized resellers and there's map pricing, right? Maybe I'm sure those are probably your home runs because it's just more stable. They're not letting anybody and everybody come on because you know how it is on Amazon. The more people come on a listing, they just destroy it.
Yep, that's 100% right. I mean, Corey nailed it, nailed the head on the coffin there. I mean, the brand exclusives is like the A or the S tier, whatever they call it, of wholesale. I mean, those are very rare in terms of actually able to land them. But when you land those, that's you're golden, right? At least for the year, however long you sign for. That's a really big initiative for my company right now is trying to land those brand exclusives. So we have a full pitch deck that we have ready, and we're trying to be as professional and as ready for those opportunities as possible. But yeah, I mean, following up is such a big important part of it. So having some sort of CRM system or basically just an Excel sheet where you can track your messages, or have one of your employees, if you're at that stage and you have an employee, have them track outreach, and making sure that you're following up, because the best account that we have I followed up 9 times to get with. So after the ninth outreach, we got it. And they aren't exclusive or anything. There's a bunch of sellers on it. But we just wanted to work directly with them so that we could get the quantity that we wanted, the lead time that we wanted, which is obviously very short when you're working directly with the brand, or it's going to be shorter than through a distributor. But yeah, it's all in the follow up for sure.
So let me ask you, when you finally, okay, say you talk to a bunch of distributors, you finally find somebody who, it sounds like it's going to be a good one. What does that look like? Because again, I'm coming from the world where I just find a good deal and I just buy it. You know what I mean? Like this is
Yeah.
like a completely different game. So you find a distributor, like, how do you know it's a good one? Is it because maybe it was a challenge to land them? And did they give you like some type of catalog that you had to run through or scan through? Like, how does this all
Yeah.
work?
Great question. Great. I was in the same boat, honestly, right before the challenge, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna reach out to them. That's easy. Then what, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't really know anything after that. It is a little bit more complex, of course, than OA. Typically the rundown is, you contact the distributor. You typically don't have too much information on their actual catalog, but some of the bigger distributors will have a website where you can see their brand offerings. So you will have, some sort of idea of what brands they carry and things of that nature. But honestly, like you mentioned earlier, it's kind of like going fishing. So once you actually catch the fish or catch the tuna, you don't know what grade of tuna it's going to be. It's the same way. So you kind of get access to the distributor, you go through their catalog, and sometimes, I mean, honestly, more often than not, it's not going to be great, right? Pricing is going to be 20% higher than what you would want. The brands that they said that they carry, they might have like one or two SKUs of, so it might be like closeout product that they got, which is totally fine. You can still buy that product as long as it's a legit product and stuff. But they might be lying a little bit, or I guess marketing a little bit. So it's kind of hit or miss once you get the distribution access. But let's say you do have a distributor and they do have good product and they do have the good brands. From that kind of stage, you kind of take that list of product and you want to shortlist it as much as possible. So let's say their MOQ, which is minimum order quantity, quantity, right? Yeah. Basically how much you have to spend to put an order with them, right? So let's say their MOQ is 5K. You want to try and get to 5K as quick as possible because that's going to show them you're serious. And also you can kind of test that supplier as quick as possible. It's similar as OA or RA or thrifting. You want to test as many products as fast as possible. So get to that MOQ as fast as possible. And how you're going to do that is, let's say this distributor has 100 brands. You want to identify maybe 2 or 3 brands that are going to work well for Amazon, whether that's lower competition, actually able to sell, so no IP complaints, price being stable, good ROI, good margin, etc. Basically 5 or 6 filters that you're going to have to create for your own company and for yourself. After you make those buying decisions, you're going to format them from whatever sheet you're using. So I would definitely suggest having a sheet open and running a unit economics on every single product. That way you can also not only be organized, but you can compare your before and after, right? You can be like, okay, I thought I was going to make, on 5,000, I thought I was going to make 1,000, but what ended up happening was I made 1,200. Okay, great. We can replumb those products, or, definitely can happen the other way, right? My first wholesale deal, I think I spent like 1,700. I lost like close to $350, and like my expected profit was like 1,200. So I was thinking I was going to make an ROI of like 70, 80%, and that just is not what happened. So definitely have, but it was really nice because I had my sheet ready to go. So I knew what I was thinking and it was kind of documented. So once you have that sheet of what you're buying, you want to take that sheet and data and you want to basically put it in a professional manner to submit the order. So it's not as simple as basically OA where you just put your credit card info and you're good to go. But basically you have to formulate what's called a PO, a purchase order. And I basically just use one of the templates that was in Corey's. When you go through the challenge, you'll get like a PDF, or not a PDF, like a Facebook link with like all the links to the recordings and then a link of like nice things to have. And I think it was in one of those nice things to have. So just copy one of those templates and then basically put your product information in there. It's basically a few things like item code, sometimes UPC, and then basically the item name, case quantity, price, promo allowance. Promo allowance is basically just like the discount that they might provide you. So sometimes they run specials. So like one of my distributors runs weekly specials. So I would put like, the 5% or 10% off that specific product in promo allowance. And then you sum that all up, make it look all pretty. I wish I had it in front of me so I could show you, but basically you just make a purchase order, has your shipping info, your billing info, your company. Definitely, I'd also say like make like a company logo. If you don't have one, just go to Canva. That's how my virtual employee did it. We didn't have one, so I was like, hey, make a logo for me, and like I needed like 5 minutes because I'm about to submit this PO, but and then submitted it and go on your way there. And then they might come back with you and be like, hey, you wanted 500, we only have 400. Is that cool? Or for 500, it might be an extra 2 weeks, and you kind of just go back and forth. You kind of have to just figure it out from there. But yeah.
Got you. So how long after you went through the challenge? I know your first one you had made some mistakes. And man, honestly, it's like, and I'll tell this to everybody. I don't care if you go to college, I don't care if you take a course, whatever you do, you're always going to make mistakes, right? The good thing about having a coach, or like that's why I invested in the challenge. I just would rather spend money to reduce my time to be successful and reduce the amount of mistakes I make. So you made some mistakes, obviously that first order. I'm sure you learned from them, and you probably, what I've done in the past, I've like taken like challenges and I've gone through courses and I'm like, I'm smarter than them. I'm going to do it my way. And then I'm like, okay, maybe they know something. Did you do some things that you shouldn't have? You kind of got cocky. You're like, you know what, man, I'm 22. I I'm taking over the world.
Yeah, a little bit. I would definitely say, I mean, like I said, I kind of want to go like right away. So like the first distributor that I got access to after the challenge, I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna make this PO. I'm gonna submit it. It's gonna go to my prep center. I'm gonna tell my prep center to send me a picture of the pallet because I've never actually purchased anything like palletized or anything before. So I was like, I can't wait. This is gonna be amazing. So I kind of say I rushed the actual product research aspect of it. I mean,
Mm.
I'll let you guys know. I mean, it was light bulbs, so I didn't really account for the fact that they could break, and also the price. The price on it was not good. I don't know. Like I looked back at it again after I sold through. I was like, what was I thinking? And then you add the breakage in there, and it was brutal. But basically, after a month and a half, I'd say like the middle, or I'd say like the end of August, early September, and I think the challenge was like the middle of July, I want to say, or early July, was a really really big order with the company that we spend the most with today. And so I'd say within 2 months I was kind of up and going. But then from there again, we've just been reaching out to people, and then we stopped reaching out to people in the end of October just because we were focusing on OA a little bit more in November, December, as well as we already had kind of our 5 to 6 core distributors.
So what do you guesstimate? Again, I know I'm taking you back, 11, 12 months, but what do you guesstimate like was the amount of like suppliers and distributors you had to reach out to until you finally got like that good one?
I think it was like around 35,
Not
35,
bad.
40. It's okay. I mean, people honestly like play it up a lot. Like people will say, like, okay, reach out to. I think Corey's a big like advocate of this, where you like reach out to 100 in a week, like you'll hit. That's 100% correct. Like honestly, like if you don't have that much capital, like reach out to 50, reach out to like just reach out to people because they're gonna message back. But the biggest thing is you will get a decent reply rate, and then you will get a somewhat of a decent open account rate. But the biggest thing is most of those accounts that you open up with typically aren't the best. So I'd say that's where it gets real like strained in terms of you reach out to 100, maybe 30 get back to you, 15 open up an account. And then from that 15, I'd say like 2 to 3 are going to have somewhat profitable product. So I'd say like if I had to put a percent on it, like 5% are going to be good, 2 to 5% are going to be good, and you're going to be able to open up an account. But yeah, you should be able to get kind of instant success in terms of your response rate. Yeah.
It's just a different game. I mean, instead of always winning every time you go out sourcing, like, yeah, maybe you only win 5% of the time, but you get long-term benefit, plus you get the relationship. So yeah, I mean, it's just a different way to look at things, and I completely understand it. So let me ask you, Rahul, as we round about to the end of this interview, what are your goals, man, moving forward? Where do you want to, right now you're about 70% OA, 30% wholesale. I know you're looking to step up your wholesale game, maybe get some exclusives. What are the goals, man? Maybe we'll have a talk next year. Where do you want to be at the end of 2024, man? What's the plan?
Yeah, so 2024 is going to be a big year for us as a company. I mean, I hired on my first 2 employees in June of 23, hired on another one in October. So we're at 4 people. I want to stay the same size, but I want to almost close to double the revenue. So that's obviously a huge goal in terms of revenue per head or per employee. So the biggest goal is to grow my Amazon business as well as expand into Walmart. Walmart has a very similar program to FBA called WFS. So sending products into there. I think I did like $900 last year in WFS sales. So nothing too crazy, but definitely was very interesting in terms of how much higher the margin and ROI can be, even though the demand and the supply of sellers is way less. So it's kind of like the Wild West, I'd say, on Walmart. A lot of experienced sellers are saying it's like early Amazon days, which is making me very excited because I was like, oh my gosh, if I was doing Amazon in like 2014 or something, I'd be like killing it right now. But so I'd say growing Amazon, growing my Walmart store, as well as really honing down on returns. Earlier in the year when we were doing a lot of OA and even towards the end of this year when we were doing a lot of OA products that have a lot of higher returns, that's a lot of capital that's being tied up. So really growing the eBay store, that way we can not only make more money, but get that cash and then cycle it back through the core businesses, which is going to be FBA, a little bit of FBM, and then WFS. And then I do also want to launch a product this year. So whether that is PL or it's a brand, I'm kind of debating between the two. I mean, they're pretty similar. PL is more, not like I'm more excited in growing a brand versus rather than just doing like one-off product like PL can be.
Control.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Control and also exitability. I mean, with PL, a lot of the times, I mean, not that you can't exit PL, like, tons of people do it, but rather than kind of having one or two products that are, hit or miss, rather kind of create some sort of community, some sort of like brand following. I don't know what space that would be in. That's a very lofty goal for 24, but I definitely want to hit it. And I would probably launch on Shopify as well as a little bit of like TikTok shop. I know that's kind of popping. But I'd probably stay away from Amazon just because I don't know, like honestly, about how it would work with like two accounts and that whole thing. And I don't want to list my like brand that I'm trying to create on my Amazon store that has like tons of random product. I wouldn't want to mix it, so I'll have to do a little bit more research. But I'd say those are the kind of the two big goals.
Well, man, I have no doubt you're going to make it happen. I love it. I can see the hunger in your eyes and the passion, and I'm sure your parents and everyone's proud of you, man. You're doing big things, and grateful to have had the chance to chat with you. And I learned a lot, man. I learned a lot from this, and you've got me excited for the challenge. Any advice for folks who are considering the wholesale challenge since you actually went through it? Any final words for folks wanting to, add wholesale to the mix and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I would definitely say I would say to join it, but the biggest thing I would say is make sure you have an open, if you do join it, make sure you have an open ears the whole time because I came in with, I don't know, like 20, 30 questions. And honestly, most of them were like asked by other people. But then there's like, there's so many questions, like, I don't know, like probably like 300 a night or whatever it is from like other people. And those questions are all questions that you're like, wait, I was literally thinking about that like 6 months ago or 4 months ago, and I didn't think about asking that. And now it's like finally solved. Because in this type of business, and I guess in most business, it's like you can't Google or chat GPT the question. You just can't because no one knows really. So you need to learn from somebody that's done it. So I'd say that's honestly probably another big thing that I took away from the wholesale challenge was just those like little things like tax considerations of like having a prep center in a state that you're not in. Just like little things like that. Like I didn't write down that question, but somebody else asked. I was like, oh shoot, I need to go do something like tomorrow because I don't want to be, delinquent or, make sure that all my taxes are in good standing, all that stuff. But I'd say join it, have open ears the whole time. Yeah, that'd be my two pieces of advice.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rahul, for coming on. I'm going to drop Rahul's Twitter as well. So I'll put your Twitter down there in the description. And yeah, just thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you. Good luck with 2024. Keep crushing it, man. And thanks for all the knowledge. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Take care. Bye.